RoadGlideSully here with another experiment. So I think I did a little bit of a teaser a couple of days ago in one of my videos about an experiment that was, well, let's just say a little out there. So Padre Piper and I were having a conversation a while back on one of his videos. It was actually I think right after I started presenting. And somehow in that conversation, Padre sparked the idea in my head of the possibility of making a kind of a wacky combination of tobacco. So I used to homebrew, and every year for Christmas I would make some kind of a peanut butter themed beer. Now I know you're already going down that road. Did he really try to make peanut butter tobacco? You bet I did. That's right. I made peanut butter and jelly tobacco. That's right. You heard me. So in our conversation with between me and Padre, he mentioned that Captain Black sells a grape tobacco. And before I ordered it, I thought, well, let's try a little experiment. So as a home brewer, the way I made peanut butter and jelly beer is I used a substance called PB2, which is essentially a powdered peanut butter. It's a dried out peanut butter powder. Peanut butter powder, that's a tongue twister. And so I thought of a couple of different ways I could try it. So I did one experiment where I took some, I think it was Lane Limited raspberry, or black raspberry. I figured that's a good jelly flavor. And I put it in, actually I put it on a piece of wax paper. And I spread it all out. I took PB2 and I mixed it together with distilled water. I had to use distilled because I didn't want to encourage mold. And I spread it all out on the paper. I put the PB2, I think like 2 tablespoons, and I can't remember how much water. It wasn't a whole lot. I wanted it kind of thick, but still thin enough to get through the spray nozzle. And I sprayed down the tobacco, and then I put the tobacco in an oven at 170 degrees. The reason I did the 170 degrees is because it's the lowest temp that the oven would go to, but I also wanted to dry the tobacco out as quickly as I could. Even though I used distilled water, I didn't want to promote any mold or anything like that. So I did 3 rounds of that, 170 degrees at about 30 minutes a time. It would dry it out pretty well. I did 3 rounds of that, and I gotta say, if you were to say choose to put peanut butter in your tobacco, that's actually not a bad way of doing it. It turned out okay. So I graduated to the next step. And that next step was to order the grape tobacco from Captain Black and do it on a little bit larger scale. By larger scale, I mean pouch. But while I was waiting on the tobacco to ship, I started thinking, well, maybe I should try a couple of different ways of doing this. So I tried 3 different ways of infusing the peanut butter into the tobacco. And again, you can pay attention if, say, you want peanut butter and jelly tobacco. And I don't know why you wouldn't, because who doesn't like peanut butter? So anyway, the 3 different ways that I tried were the same way that I've already described: 170 degrees, 30 minutes after spraying down all of the tobacco, mixing it up on a piece of wax paper. The second one was I did the same wax paper process, spread it out, but then just sprayed it and let it air dry. But I did kind of lighter coats, and I did more of them. My thinking there was, well, as long as I'm using distilled water, I might be promoting mold with it sitting out on the counter, but let it sit for a little while. It's not like I'm gonna keep this stuff for a long time. I'm gonna smoke it pretty quick. I wasn't making a whole big batch anyway. And then the third way I did was basically a direct infusion. I took peanut butter powder and I put it right into the jar, and then I used my rehydration method, which was to put a little thing of water down inside the tobacco inside of a jar. And my thinking there is that the powder would then soak up the water and kind of meld in with the tobacco. Of the 3 versions, that 3rd version was actually the one that seemed to work the best in terms of getting the peanut butter flavor. The Captain Black tobacco and the Black Raspberry tobacco from Lane Limited, they are very strong in those flavors. So the challenge that I had was getting enough peanut butter flavor into it so that you could actually taste the peanut butter and smell the peanut butter. And I think I did okay. I did send some to Padre Piper. I don't know if he's had enough guts to try it. I also sent him a corncob pipe just in case he gets up enough nerve to give it a shot. But I got to tell you, it wasn't bad. So I like doing experiments like this. It's kind of what I do. I like tinkering. I like playing with things. I've said it several times. I can't leave well enough alone. I think there's a lot of tobacco purists that say, well, I'm not going to mess with the tobacco because that's how the manufacturer wanted it. And while I respect that they spend a lot of time and effort getting things that way, I also understand that they do that to try to appeal to the masses, and they don't always get it right for every individual. So I am absolutely not afraid to take a tobacco that I otherwise think is one-dimensional or maybe kind of over-the-top grape, say, and play with it a little bit. See if I can't get something that is interesting to make. I'm getting ready to do another experiment where I'm going to take some Bayou Morning and lighten it up a little bit with some red ribbon from Sutliff, and see if I can lighten up the Perique a little bit for those times where I want a kind of a Bayou Morning experience or a vapor experience, but I don't want as strong of a Perique. And so I'm not afraid to play around with that, and you shouldn't be either. Odds are, if your cellar looks anything like mine, you got a lot of tobacco in it, and there's no sense in leaving it all exactly how you found it. In fact, we're all probably doing experiments right now by leaving our tobacco in the cellar, and that experiment comes with just about as much risk as the things that I'm doing with tobacco. And because it could go wrong, it could get mold. You could open up a 10-year-old thing of tobacco, and it could have mold on it, and you've just wasted the 10 years. Still worth the experiment, still worth the good old college effort, but you risk the tobacco, and I don't see anything wrong with that. So if you're doing tobacco experiments, I would totally like to hear from you. I'd like to get some ideas from you. If you're not, again, I'd encourage you to start playing around a little bit. Start mixing things up. Start taking blends and putting them together and see what happens. You don't have to do it, on an ounce to ounce or a pound basis. You can do it on a very small basis in your bowl. So I'd encourage you to, give experimentation a chance. It's fun. It's fun playing around. It's fun talking about all the great stuff that you've made. It's fun talking about all the failures and learning from them. So give it a shot. I am RoadGlideSully. Keep the rubber side down, folks.